packet count, but filtering, you can control the packet count. So what you do is you control...
We've tried to read the how-tos on how to do it in pfSense, and 2 of us have said, yes, I agree with you, that's what the how-to says, and it has no effect on the traffic.
So what you want to control probably is packets per second, PPS, packets per second.
Okay.
So imagine, I'm on video, I can't say this out loud. There are situations where certain organizations, like governments, want to control what people can see, and sometimes they put in bandwidth shapers, bandwidth limiters, and it's more economical to do packets per second limitation than it is to try to do deep packet inspection.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's, I don't know, I haven't gotten into that level. I would just get packets per second. I guess that's what we probably want, either bytes. I think we're trying to do bytes per second rather than
Got the
packets
video
per
sheet,
second.
how do I get the slides?
Oh, you just do the conversion easier now.
Okay, good sound.
You can share your screen and open the slides up.
Okay, how do I,
Packets are going to be
Share this.
1,500 bytes unless you got
The MTU is variable. Within his problem, though, it's layer 3, so MTU doesn't play any effect. What you're doing is you're basically going to say, I'm only going to accept 60 packets per second. Okay?
Yeah.
And what happens is you slow down the connection by changing the rate. So it's not a speed issue, it's more of a rate.
Yeah, right. Okay, I just wanted to know if anybody had done it with pfSense because the how-to doesn't work for us. You get it all set up, but traffic is still high, no matter what you set the rate down to, the traffic is still high.
And
It could be that we have a miss, but like we're counting packets when we should be counting bytes or the other way around. That could be the problem.
well, a lot of people do get confused about that because packets per second doesn't make a whole lot of kilobytes per second conversion.
Right.
Like we said, if the MTU is set at 1,500, then you can get out your calculator and figure it out.
Or we could be making the simple states of megabits versus megabytes. I suppose that's. I mean, when you start asking me, it's like that's a pretty stupid mistake. I don't think we're making that one.
So might be on both systems. Where were you trying to put TC in the middle?
Well, where it works is with just TC on one system. You don't need it on the second system.
Actually, you do.
Yeah, we don't.
Is your outbound packet limitation?
Well, the packet, all the heavy packet is in one direction, so we limit it in that direction.
Okay, so it's a one-way thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's some solutions to that. I wonder if we have a mailing list that could actually have a discussion about this.
For one thing, that like you said, it's asynchronous. The asynchronous channel between the two communicators is not. It's asynchronous. It's not synchronous. The upload speed's bigger than the download speed. So.
Yeah, there's some tools like that. But if you wanted to be evil, which I'm sure you do.
Oh yes, we do.
You can use NetCat and some other NCCat, or yeah, just NetCat, and you can actually control the stuff through. If you install a package called PV, which is Pipe Viewer, you can actually view the rates that are happening, which is extremely evil.
Yeah, when the two machines were Unix machines, it wasn't a problem. Now one of the machines is a Windows machine, and we don't want to go in. We don't want to go there.
So you got to use.
you got your
So we'd
invitation,
rather do it in the firewall.
Sorry,
you've been invited, right?
been talking.
Okay, how do we get you joined?
See if I have an invitation. I have an email from Phil Bunch.
Oh. So the invitation didn't.
Yeah, I don't see it. But yeah, I have on one of my websites here, I have a discussion.
Oh. Right.
So, in certain situations, you can actually use NC to pipe out and receive and catch files?
That's what happened. I was reading that.
Hold on, I gotta answer a phone call real quick.
Just let me put my other earplug in.
Oh,
Who is that guy?
I don't know. He is crazy.
Hold on a second, let's get on this. And let's go to screen share. Screen share.
Two dozen. That's when they happen.
So, as an example, here, you need to click on me.
on Andrew.
And then,
Is that to everyone?
hold on a second. Okay. There, you are screen sharing and presenting to everyone. Okay.
All right.
What am I sharing?
Just
Share, Hangouts, share. Oh, it's having trouble sharing that, isn't it? What do you see? Do you see nothing? I'm sure we are shooting through the end of
This is one person watching, wouldn't it? Oh, that's on YouTube.
Okay, can I ask a question? So for example, here I'm using TV, which is the viewer, and I'm controlling your noise around that. Done? Done. Okay.
We're good? We're good?
That was on your speaker.
Yes, yes. I killed.
So what's going on here is the PV, you could actually use something like this to control the connections. So for example, you could actually set up a NAT to run through a pipe, and then you can actually control that pipe itself.
You see the difference between has parameters and.
So pipe viewers normally you are watching things, but there are other tools for controlling the
I need somebody who can make the ESS, and since nobody here, I'm just gonna put my earplug back again.
But there are some projects called, there are some projects about emulating land. So if you search for the term emulate land, there are some tools built to make really crafty connections so that you can emulate a wide area network. So that type of stuff exists.
We have a wide area network. We won't want to emulate it, we want to control it.
Okay. Well, I would suggest you toss it on the discussion, and we can discuss it at some point. I am. I swear to you that I am sharing my screen. But you. Okay.
Using your microphone.
Yes, sir.
You did ask a question, and I forgot about that. Why don't we do a presentation next month? I'll help you if I can, however I can, on monitoring your network traffic, putting a sniffer between which of your routers. So you get your traffic share.
Well, BFD, are you talking about BFD? Bidirectional forwarding is typically how you do it.
Yeah, I mean, however you want to do it.
Maybe, we've got Craig booked next month.
Okay. Month after, whatever.
The big Craig?
He's a big Craig.
Ooh.
Tell him to talk about it.
Is he booked for the Wednesday or Thursday meeting?
Let's bring them on both.
He is booked for the Linux user group, the Thursday meeting.
Okay.
And so I'm going to go ahead and get to some meeting stuff so that I can enjoy some pizza. And I'm going to rock through this as best I can.
I think we're seeing you.
Well, you're seeing that, but you're not going to see my presentation right.
No,
Unless you want to screen share the presentation like I suggested.
I thought I was doing that. How do I do that?
Sorry?
Well, how do I do that? I have you selected.
Here, this is going to be easier for you.
Oh, okay. I'll just switch to the,
I think we're draining their network here.
okay.
Phil and Gary, are you guys downloading stuff?
No.
Okay. David, are you doing torrent?
I'm looking at the static page, Blender is a video.
Okay. It's pretty bad if the presenter can't get enough bandwidth to present.
It's probably John. He's got-
No, it's Stan. He's doing stuff.
Stan?
Hi.
What?
How much is allotted to the back room?
I will switch over to my 40 meg connection.
Oh, you switch back.
Blender performs other functions besides video editing.
Lots of functions, yeah.
Good what?
Is it like Emacs? Like you do everything you want?
On there?
You guys are going to have to go fight for pizza.
There's a place over there too for you guys. Yeah.
Especially hot weather.
Even inside. You still. Tomorrow's supposed to be even warm. Yeah, and then I heard it's supposed to rain by Monday.
Okay, I'm going to rock through this while you guys are munching and I'm not. So all of my talks are completely open and shared, so you guys can use them. You might have to use this thing called JavaScript and HTML5. It's called The Future. I think you've heard of it. I'm going to credit the source here. Basically, what's happening here is that my nephew has a skateboard and a GoPro camera, and so he wants to do video editing. And so his dad, my brother, says, "Hey, Andy, help me out here, buddy." Because he's not really into the mood to doing the whole Mac Premiere thing. You know, that's an extra $5,000 he's not really willing to spend. So I sat down and I'm like, okay. I found a very nice laptop on Lenovo's clearance section, a very nice ThinkPad, a T-Series even, $500 with 12 gig of RAM and all kinds of craziness. So I got that for him, and then I got started setting up Blender for him. And there's a really great video series that's linked here. And so whenever you want to, I'll put this link to this talk out to the discuss list, but you can actually log on and go watch this playlist. It's actually pretty good. So this guy actually has a playlist, and he's actually really, well-spoken, a much better speaking voice than myself. And he goes through all the basics of Blender, and he's got like multiple talks on really cool stuff. But today we're going to talk about Blender. So Blender is a free and open source software, free to use for any purpose forever. That first tagline is everywhere on all of their websites. They basically want to make it sure it's very clear that they have no intention of ever letting evilness seep in. Okay, but their actual description of what they are is, is welcome to Blender, the free and open source 3D animation suite. Blender can be used to create 3D visualizations such as still images, video, and real-time interactive video games. Blender is well suited to individuals and small studios who benefit from its unified pipeline and responsive development process. It is cross-platform and runs on Linux, Mac OS X, Microsoft Windows systems with a small memory and disk footprint. Its interface uses OpenGL to provide a consistent experience across all supported hardware platforms. If you've ever worked in production if you've ever worked in production houses doing video work, the development process is a huge deal. How you get thing A over to person B to do his magic and then pass it on. So the entire production process is really kind of crazy. Question?
This is now Blender works on Linux, Mac OS X, and Windows. Does Blender perform, you may not know the answer to this, does Blender perform identically on all those platforms? Or can there be issues about which platform has licensed the rights to use which codec?
Okay, codecs are a different slide on this talk.
Okay,
However, performance should be identical, assuming a lot of things. Assuming you don't have craziness on your operating system of choice. So for example, whether you're on whatever platform, how fast your system performs on that platform is just, that's the speed. But it tries to use the OpenGL, it says there in the last sentence, is it tries to standardize across all platforms, so it will react pretty much the same, the best it can. But, if your Microsoft Windows environment is slow, that's nothing it can compensate for. If your Mac OS X is slow because you have everything in the world open and you refuse to close something, which is typical for Mac users.
I think I mean to say, are there certain videos, kinds of videos that you cannot open or save in that same format, depending on which of the 3 platforms you're on?
Yeah. As we get to the codecs slide, we'll talk about that in depth.
Okay.
Let's see here. Video editing in general. How many of you guys have done video editing in the past? I taught a video editing class in 1997, and things have changed a lot since then.
Was I there?
No, you weren't.
That's when you had one in tape.
I'm sorry?
That's when you had one in tape, right?
No, I had a Pentium 90. Yeah, I taught real video editing.
In 97, what equipment were you editing on?
A Pentium 90 system.
And what?
A Pentium 90.
A Pentium 90.
A lot of you guys remember the Pentium 90s.
Still got a bunch of them in service. Still got a problem with that.
I wouldn't say it out loud.
Hey, they live forever.
Okay, so one of the fun things about video editing software is there's a ton of options. There's options which are overlay options, which are, hey, here's a video, now overlay my cutesy words on top of it. There's lots of systems which are very, very specific to short things. There's lots of shareware or freeware that overlay their licensing statement on them. There's even extremely closed source software solutions like Adobe Premiere or After Effects or all these other tools that can do video that while they might be fantastic, they might chew your wallet up. One of the biggest problems with the open source software projects is that a large amount of them kind of spin off into their own areas and they lose traction. And as they lose traction, they sort of die off. So you'll have like KDN Live and a whole bunch of old tools that just no longer are supported because nobody's really followed them. One of the benefits of Blender is that it has always been used to produce video. So Blender has always been used to produce video. It's just sometimes that video was generated. What's going on? Oh, You can ask for glasses.
I already have one.
Your lack of common drive, that sentence, that where you're talking about the different projects kind of lose steam?
Yeah, so some of the open source software projects, they lose steam, and I could have worded this 50 ways better than I just did on this screen. So the people that are watching at home later, they have to listen to me very carefully. So I might fix that up a little bit later. You can reword it, actually. I'll let you edit it.
On Blender.
So methods, there's two primary methods to video editing. There's non-linear editing, which is kind of like a non-destructive editing method, so that you're never actually cutting and pasting. You're actually saying, I'm here on the stream, or I'm here on the stream. And in data, in general technology, we all understand that there's no such thing as a file. There's a point on a stream and a point on a stream, and that's basically how everything is. Linear video editing, which there are actually some software products that do linear video editing. Basically, that's like the old method of taking a razor blade, cutting the film, and taping it together. Or having two VCRs and one mixer, and then another VCR recording the output. Very
There's
destructive.
software that does linear?
Yes, there is. I'm sure that they charge money for it, too. Stupid knows no bounds. Wikipedia, as always, fantastic articles on the topics. So video is actually very interesting. It actually has usually audio channels or streams. So for example, if you have like 7.1 audio, that means 7 channels plus a base, so 8 channels total. Moving pictures, which are normally pictures of a certain resolution, cycling at a certain speed, and then there's usually a timing element saying, hey, keep this audio and this picture on the same time slot. And so, like for an example here, we have like 1080p, 60 frames per second. So a lot of these new TVs are 120 frames per second. And a lot of you individuals that are older than me probably remember 24 frames per second. Or maybe less. Thank you, Steve.
They 10?
1 frame per second. Have one of those.
Slow scan?
But yeah, a lot of times you'll hear people have these conversations. They're like, oh, this thing's at 1080p, 50 frames per second, or this thing's 4K, 120. And that's basically the resolution and the frames per second. And that matters a lot. So for example, if you're trying to do a transition between two videos, if you have 120 frames per second, then you can do some fun things. But if you only have 1 frame per second, like Steve, then you can't do very much. Okay, so codecs, coder, decoder, compression, decompression. There's all kinds of terminology around this. But in general, there's a licensing issue. There's a compatibility issue. There's features. So lossy versus lossless versus lossy compression. And most people are going to use one camera and one computer most of the time. So a lot of this stuff does go away by accident. But if you're like taking disparate video sources and trying to mix them together, you are going to butt your head against the licensing wall. And so what the licensing wall is basically a situation where some company has patented or copyrighted the algorithm to compress a picture and audio into a moving picture. So it's really kind of silly. So what happens is that you have systems which may or may not have the proper amount of codecs to address a format. So for example, if you have an MP4 file for MPEG-4, or you have an MPG file for MPEG-2 or 3, it gets very confusing.
You say MPG for MP2 or MP3?
3 was never actually accepted as a video format.
That was an audio stream, but your
No,
sentence
no, no,
included.
MP3 is an audio stream, different topic.
No, okay, no, but you just said MPG
Correct.
as, and you listed 2 more things.
As MPEG codec version 2, okay? And for a brief moment in time, there was an MPEG. MPEG 2 is a standard, widely accepted.
Motion picture and electronics group.
Yes, over there. Phil's spitting out Wikipedia for us. And so MP4, which is MPEG 4, which is basically a little bit more modern, generic thing that is almost free. There's a lot of people that are still claiming they don't hold the license is still in question. So it's actually kind of hilarious. I'm going to do my demonstration with Ogg Vorbis and Ogg Theora, which are completely open formats.
So is it's M4V that is owned by Apple then?
No. Apple owns nothing.
Somebody at Apple doesn't want to do business. Whatever.
So what Apple might have is they might have a patent on the compression algorithm, and they may have licensed it for general use, but they may have limited the general use to not include commercial use. It's called a dual license. So you can use it if you're Phil over there editing cat videos, but you cannot use it if you're a commercial enterprise. So that's where licensing gets crazy. Did my cheesy sticks ever show up?
Yeah, they're right here.
Oh, man.
It's still there.
Perfect.
Haven't all been eaten.
You left some.
Oh, where my glue go? So as you get into formats like XVID, AVI, MOV, those are file extensions which will allow you to state a different codec inside the file to make life difficult. So you could have a MOV file which uses an AVI codec base, an old XVID base. And you could have a AVI file that uses a proprietary Microsoft codec. And so that's where it gets very difficult. And in general, a pretty bad, not necessarily bad, but a pretty inefficient codec to look for is what is used for the base XVID. So XVID is this old platform for storing just everything raw. So it's not very efficient, but it's pretty compatible. So it's do you want to send the picture of the cat flying the airplane in a big file or a small file? And everybody prefers the small file, and that's where all the codec wars come from. But if you're video editing and if you have the resources, you can actually pick the more generic formats, do all of your work, and then as a last step, you can try to do that conversion from this big fat format down to a skinny format.
Is there a list
Yeah, Wikipedia has a list of codecs.
that are used by the
Blender will try to open anything that it can find a library installed on your system for. So for example, you're running on Linux and you've got this set of libraries. It's going to say, oh, hey, he's got that codec, that codec, that codec. We're gold. Okay. You're on a Windows system and you've got these codecs. Okay, you can do those. So it's going to try to use a common whatever's local.
How hard is it to install something?
It's OS specific.
I'm saying, like in the Linux world, we'll point you to the package with the appropriate name for it.
Okay, so if you're using Ubuntu, which skirts around all legal things and lets you install anything illegally, you can set up anything you want.
Well, I mean, Susie's saying with PatMed, what I'm saying is, more than once I've seen it needs this Kodak, but there's no package with that Kodak.
Correct. So what's happening is this Kodak has a very proprietary license, and the license holder has refused to allow it to be used on any system but Microsoft Windows or Apple Macintosh OS.
Okay.
So it's literally lawyers in hats somewhere laughing. But so, for example, you might have a post-production process of taking that video onto some other system and doing conversion to the codec. So it's a post-production process. So whenever you're watching a movie and the things are scrolling up at the end, post-production, that's the guy that's like putting it onto a format and carrying it around.
Any experience with what the best, call it intermediate format would be? You import, you edit, you do, in a maybe lossless format before you throw it out to wherever your target is?
It is, if you're working on a project, it's best if everything that you're working on is in the same format and is in relatively the same resolution. We'll talk about that later.
There's a Blender format.
Blender uses all kinds of stuff. It does not have a native video format, but it does prefer OGG Vorbis if you're into that, OGG Theora if you're into that. But yeah, codecs are a crazy thing. So for example, Debian refuses to allow people to install codecs unless they literally load up a third-party source. So for example, there's debian-multimedia.org, which allows you to skirt the law and download all kinds of things. And as an individual user, it would probably be fine for you to use that. But as a company, you would be held liable, and they would take you to the bank.
Well, and that's why Susie wrote in a PatMed, which is stuff that doesn't meet strict license.
Right.
Same.
Right. So yeah, if you're doing this for home use and you're not profiting, they're not going to win any money off of you, so to speak. But if you're a company and you're trying to cheat, yeah, they're going to take it to the bank.
Were you going to ask? I thought you said over here. Okay.
And Adobe Premiere,
Okay.
I got 4 files from that camera, 1 file from that camera, and one file from that camera. They're kind of different formats. I would take one of the files from that camera, and I tell Adobe Premiere, when I put that in the timeline Adobe Premiere, the timeline will ask me if I would like to adapt to the resolution and frame speed of that clip that I just put in the timeline. So whenever I pull another clip from that camera in the timeline, it doesn't have to be rendered. But if I pull the clip from this camera or this camera, then the Adobe timeline will do rendering to make it like that camera. Does
Okay.
Blender work in about the same way?
Well, what you're talking about is actually a mistake in the process, okay? So in the process of video editing, you're going to want to take all of your sources and do an initial conversion to the same frame rate and do a scaling to the correct resolution you want your finished product to be. So for example, if one video stream is 1280 by 768, and you have got another 1080p stream, and then you've got a 720p stream, you would want to basically pick what resolution you want your finished product to be,
Yes.
and you would convert them all prior to ever loading them in a video editor. Okay, that's a production process difference. So instead of actually trying to do it all with a 50-pound sledge, you should have a process where you're taking all of your input, you're organizing them in a folder, saying this is my input folder, and I'm converting all of this stuff to the exact same codec, I'm converting it all to the exact same resolution, and that way when I go to do my video editing, my video editor is not absolutely confused about how to do this transition and fade from black to the other video of different resolution, because that's a lot of work it doesn't need to be doing.
So I'm going to resample this video and this video, so it's same as those 4 videos from that camera.
Mm-hmm.
How do I really know what what the parameters are. How I look up the parameters of that video. This guy from this camera handed me 4 videos. I have no idea what it is.
No, there's lots of tools that will identify the video. For example, VLC actually has immediate information, and it will tell you everything, including the camera that took the video.
And what are the important parts that I really care about to make these 2 videos like those ones?
As mentioned, you care about the frame size and the frame rate. Okay? So if you have one camera that's 24 frames per second and one camera that's 30 frames per second, you want to basically resample them down to 24.
Okay, so these videos is 720p and 24 frames per second, and they're MP4 files or MP4 Kodak. But this video and this video are 2 different Kodaks. That doesn't matter as long as I make that one and that one 24 frames per second and 720p. I'm good to go, right?
As I've said twice already, you want to take them to the same codec, the same resolution, and the same frame rate to make video editing easier in a production process.
Okay, so it's the 3 things. So I need to identify then how I identify the Kodak of the video when it's a .mov file.
So for example, if you go through the YouTube videos, basically will talk about a production process of where you have your inputs and your outputs, okay? And you kind of want to organize everything ahead of time, because as you're working on more video, you might have more small cuts that you're bringing in, and you do need to organize all of that stuff ahead of time, okay? And that's just production process.
Okay, so it's explained in those in that list of videos.
He kind of touches on this, but this is generalized production video process, okay? Not necessarily home video of, I've got 2 pictures of the cats fighting. I've got 2 videos of the cats fighting, and I want to put a transition. That's like simple consumer stuff, and that's what I'm trying to target today, okay?
Okay.
And it has been nearly 20 years since I've done most of this commercially. But in general, you want to get your inputs the same, just like everything else. So just like Stan's CSVs. You want your CSVs to be the same format, same number of columns. Installing Blender. Blender's easy to install. It's an operating system package on almost everything. Or you can compile it if you'd like. Stanford would compile because that's how he rolls. Hey, look, it's demo time.
Because if you try to compile it yourself, you got to go get all the right libraries.
And the other problem with compiling itself is it makes it harder to update.
So,
Yeah, if you have to compile it yourself, you're using the wrong OS. And you can quote me on that.
so whenever you open up Blender for the very first time, it's going to default to this thing. And it's going to kind of freak you out for a little bit unless you actually do 3D modeling. How many of you guys have done 3D modeling?
I've tasted it.
How many of you guys have been paid for doing 3D modeling? How many of you guys were underpaid for doing 3D modeling? Okay, so what's going to happen is by default, you're going to have a 3D modeling setup to do all kinds of crazy stuff. We've got a camera right here. We've got a light source over here. We've got an object we're bouncing. So one of the steps in normal setup, so for example, if you're going to use Blender for video editing, is there's actually a screen layout little drop down here, and the YouTube videos have an entire video dedicated to setup. And you're just going to go down to video editing here, which is the bottom option, and all of a sudden it takes you into video editing mode. I've cheated because I have a video loaded, but normally this is blank, and you kind of step in here. What we have is, as you come in,
Funny.
Something.
So yeah, whenever you log on to it the first time, you're going to have this really crazy screen up in the upper left-hand corner. But it's actually very configurable. There are sub-menus for each section. So you can actually change things around to your own liking, which is fantastic if you have like lots of screens. So for example, if you got lots of screens, you can actually break this thing apart onto multiple screens. So that's really awesome. But what we're going to do here is we're going to change this view to the properties view. And I think I have... Let me get over here. I think I have an older individual assistance device.
They call it magnifying glass.
Yeah, I've got a magnifying glass over here somewhere. Can you read that, Stan?
Yes.
Okay. So what's happening is over in this property section, these are like the properties of the video. And you'll have some very easy to understand items. So for example, resolution, start frame and end frame. Yes.
Where do I choose video editing here?
In the screen layout.
Where is the screen layout? I just see file, render,
That button right there.
it's just, it looks like a window. No, system housing.
If you click the little boxy thing there.
How do you? I'm trying to. Okay, all right, thanks.
Okay. My cheesy sticks are getting cold.
Take a minute to eat.
The beer's not going to drink itself.
When you put, put all the phone here and you.
No, that won't work.
I'm paying here for that. I'm sorry.
Max is the one world.
All right, now I know what. You have phone, but.
That's kind of, that is the only.
What?
Every other.
Oh.
I thought you said you take the cheese break.
Hey guys, you got a couple pieces of deluxe, one bacon over here. Edgar, you want some?
I'm working through my cheese sticks right now. Got to plug up the bottom. As you'll notice, there's a frame rate there. So for example, you know, there's a bunch of frame rates.
Can I do it 51 frames per second?
I'm sorry?
Can I do 51 frames per second?
What does the bottom option say?
Custom, good.
How the hell do you make the UI bigger?
Andrew,
Hi.
how do you make the damn UI big enough to read it?
You get a couple 4K screens.
You change the screen resolution, is that?
What are you doing there? You have the file menu open.
Yeah, I'm trying to find a file.
Well, why are you jumping the gun here? Because we're still on setup here, bud. You're going to want to pay attention to this, Lee.
Okay.
So pretend this video is not loaded, okay? Normally, you do need to go through some setup, and we're going to talk about this right now. You would set your rendering presets, okay? So for example, you could set your formats here, or you could set them manually, but you would set this for your project, what your end goal target is going to be, okay?
Which in this case, I want to be like one of those 4 videos.
So you're going to have your plan together. You have your output figured out. There's going to be an output folder where you want stuff to land. By default, it's going to be temp.
Emma, where are you?
I'm sorry?
Where are you?
The property street. Property with what?
Here. Properties.
Timeline properties.
And so right here at this output, you're going to want to set your output directory, where things are going to land, okay?
That's where the final rendered project will land.
Right, but typically you'll have like a project setup. So you have this project, and you have it land in a directory for that project's output directory. So by default, whenever you start Blender for the first time, by default, it will be set to a PNG output format. It will default to spitting out thousands of pictures. This is a beginner mistake. Do not jump the gun. Come in here and configure it first.
Saying that disk is gonna fill up real quick.
It's not, well, it's going to be kind of the same size. It's just going to be 4,000 files instead of 1. So we're going to set this to Ogg Theora for today, but there's some other formats here.
So it's configured for Edison's original kinetoscope, is that it?
It sounds like a test to see if the user has actually read the documentation.
Okay.
I still don't know how to read this.
So also in the next section is called encoding here. And here you can set your encoding.
So you've chosen the format, it's Ogg Theora.
Yeah, hold on a second here. I've got a magnifier and it's messing me up here.
The format is Ogg Theora.
Hold on a second. I apparently,
Choice he made.
Yeah, so that's what he's going to save his video as an Ogg Theora.
Right.
correct. That's just what I'm choosing. Your choice may vary.
Is that just a Linux specific
No,
codec?
it's an open codec.
It's an open codec.
Okay, and also by default, just to mess up the newbies, audio will be disabled.
Okay.
And this is actually for a very funny reason, because normally in Blender, you're animating 3D objects and there is no sound. But because we're going to be using Blender as a video editor, we've got to turn sound on. So I'm going to set it to Vorbis, which is the Ogg open format for audio. There are some sampling rate things here. So we have like a bit rate, and we have like some bit rate stuff here. We have rate maximum and minimums, which would be really great for TCP UDP connections. I tried Stanford.
What, the BP? What?
I was talking about rate limiting.
I want,
Okay. So this is like the normal setup here, okay? You're going to want to do this, and you're going to want to basically set this up to make yourself happy once. And then you can go up here to the file, and you can save startup file. And so what that does is it takes your current little work that you've done, and it saves it as the default view. So that then next time and every other time, you don't have to think as much. You can be more like a mindless robot.
This is a Blender file, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, what we're saving right now, what we're saving right now is the preferences.
Okay, so you won't see this file out on your desktop, and you can, when you double click it and it opens up Blender, in the settings, you
It's a
chose.
config file. And this configuration, that's all it is.
Can you have presets? Choose different config files?
Remembers everything.
Oh, so I was envisioning you double click this big file and Blender opens up.
And
The way you like it.
Looks as if all the find out what.
Yeah,
That's
so,
so 1984, Tammy.
so for example, it would be like having a desktop with a cat jumping off of a couch on your computer, and you restart your computer and the cat's no longer there. No, we're saving the cat picture. So we're saving preferences here, okay?
Save the cat.
Cat pictures are utterly important. Okay. So now, if I can get my mouse to work here. So the only other settings that we might want to save on our defaults, down here at the very bottom, see, my other screen is much bigger than this screen. Down here at the very bottom is a playback button, okay? And this playback, it controls how the video is played back in the preview window, okay? So imagine that you have a 4K video that you're working on, and you go to hit the playback button, and your poor computer is churning because it's not prepared to do all the craziness that you have set up for it. And so it starts stuttering and not very happy. So in the playback option, you have things like your frame dropping, so you can tell it, hey, just try to play the video back. If you can't play that frame, just drop it and keep going, because it's just a preview, okay? You might have an audio-video sync. Make sure my audio and my video channels play back at the same time, because I don't like hearing gobbledygook and seeing the guy's mouth move at a different time. And normally for previewing, I mute the audio for most of the time. So for example, if you have it looping over and over and over again, it gets kind of tiring hearing it. So I usually turn the audio off whenever I'm looping stuff and playing with stuff. And audio scrubbing will just clean up the situation. And this is all discussed in the YouTube videos, and I also have it discussed later in some slides. Okay, and after you have all of those things set up, you would want to make sure to save your startup file. And hey, look, there's a button below it called Load Factory Settings. I wonder what that does. Do you think it's descriptive enough?
It would overwrite your stuff with that
Right,
factory
right.
stuff.
But it's absolutely hilarious, because I talk with people that work with proprietary software, and they're like, well, what's the setting do? And I'm like, it says what it does.
Factory settings.
Heaven forbid, so that should name actually be descriptive.
Right. Well, this is what drives me absolutely crazy with a lot of these proprietary systems, is that the users are so used to requiring a cheat sheet. You need a cheat sheet to use the thing, that it's like, yeah, it's impossible. It's
When the cheat sheet is built into the screen, they don't know what to do.
If you've totally lost control. At least start over, like if you're starting out, you wanna, a lot of times you experiment. Go back somewhere.
so you're a button masher, aren't you?
Sometimes it's pretty hairy. I've never used that one, of course, but I reached for it a billion times.
Okay, that's all the crazy little menu things that are hard to see.
So you already set your frame rate and your frame
Well,
size.
yeah, I'm actually going to show you that here in a second.
Oh, you're about to do that.
Yeah, I'm actually going to talk about the interface. So all of these little boxes are completely configurable, and you can set them to be the exact same thing. So for example, we could have the sequence thing twice. So I have a sequence box up here and a sequence box down here. So they're very configurable. You can do whatever you want. There's no limit to it. It's completely open.
So you're seeing the same thing twice there. For a
Yeah.
moment.
But if you had like a lot of screens, you could set this up to be really awesome because you have your sequencer over here, your preview over here, and your other stuff over there.
So what is that box right now that you got there? That's the.
So in the upper left-hand corner, I just have the properties. So this is the properties of like the project in general. Okay. And over here on the top right, I have a preview. And this preview does not represent the finished product. It represents kind of like a preview of what I'm doing. So you can actually configure the preview to be lower resolution so that it doesn't take so much time to play every time. In the middle here, I have what's called a sequencer. Okay? The sequencer has no limit to the number of input channels or, any information. You can scroll and make it huge and small, and you can have 4 bazillion things going on in here.
So you could have 20, if you had the RAM, you'd have 20 videos that you could pull from in
Correct.
the sequencer.
So, for example, let's just say that you had multiple audio channels. So, for example, you had like a video of a cat running around a pool, and then you wanted to overlay the sounds of splashing. You could throw in an extra audio track of splashing. And so you could use Blender as almost a pure audio mixer if you really wanted to.
Do you have to have a video track?
You don't have to,
Okay.
but you would have to set your output very carefully.
Hmm.
Okay, so the sequencer's down here, and one of the things that Blender does by default, which is a safety mechanism, and do not try to change it, is that it takes a right click to select something. Because there's so many times you want to left click on things that you could get yourself into an accident. And as you select things, the little context menu in the side here changes, and it tells us that we have a video over here. Is this video here? Yeah, we have a video blend cross. So we have the original dimension is 845 by 480. The frames, the playhead, all kinds of information here. And so this is information about the video. So for example, if you wanted to open your video once into Blender and document the resolution there, you could. But usually tools like VLC are better for that. If you select an audio channel, it will start showing you information about the audio. Hey, look, there's settings for pitch and all kinds of stuff. So that you can make people sound really funny. And down at the bottom, we have a timeline view. So down here at the bottom, we have a timeline. So for example, we can see, what's going on at a particular time. And in this timeline view, you can change how things, kind of appear and work.
When the timeline view is only where you control where the video head is, right?
So normally the timeline view in an editor's context is the timeline of what you want your finished product to look like, and it does not need to represent reality in any way, shape, or form. So I could start a timeline, where am I hit here? So I can come here, I can set my start, and I can come here and set my end, and I can set my play loop there. And for all reality, I have created the timeline of what I want my finished product to be, but it does not represent or mess with the sequencer in any way, shape, or form.
So your sequencer is like a much bigger project in
Your
there.
sequencer is like a massive canvas, and your timeline is like taking an X-Acto knife up to your canvas and cutting out what
The
you want.
timeline is like only a specific part of your entire sequence.
It's your finished product, what you're going to sell. Okay? And so, for example, I'm running the I'm running the playback here so that you can see Big Buck Bunny here getting messed with by the little guys. So, yeah, I better distracted.
Is that one of your friends?
Huh?
Is that one of your friends?
Oh, that's my idol. So what's happening here is that we have at the very bottom, let me see here if I can get the, so down here at the very bottom, we've got the start of our sequence, the end of our sequence, and numerical values, our current location and numerical value. We have a start button, a rewind button.
That 4,500, that's a frame number?
Correct. So you have the timing slice of a video is your time source. If you've ever worked in telecommunications, you have to have a time source. If you ever worked with anything across the wire, you have to have a time source. And so if your time are set as frames.
When you say time source, you mean a common time that everything uses?
Correct, yeah. So as a demonstration,
That's gonna be your time marker, not necessarily the number of frames.
so I will come up here and change 24 frames per second to 30 frames per second, and suddenly the audio channel and the video channel have a different number of frames because I'm messing with reality. So everything needs a common.
You made the video too long or you made it too short in relation to the audio.
No.
No, he's breaking it up in different.
They're broken up in different units.
So what I've done is that this blue line down here, okay, the blue line at the bottom.
Yeah, that's like the song that was supposed to end when that
Nope.
video ended. But now we
no.
can change the frame rate. Now the video don't end when the song ends, right?
Conversely, the blue line is the video, and because I lowered the frame rate, all of a sudden the audio is longer.
Oh, okay, Aqua's the song.
Yeah.
So the song keeps playing after the video finished because the video played too fast.
No. Our timeline is right here, okay? So what happens is this audio plays slightly faster inside of our timeline. So the voice won't match up with the mouth.
Yeah,
That's
okay.
what you say, yeah.
So the voice is speaking too slow compared to the mouth.
Yes, correct, slower.
Can I point out, back in '74 at Rice Film School, they had 16 millimeter audio, sprocketed audio recorders and players. And so you'd be editing a film, you'd get the same number of frames per second on the 16 millimeter sprocketed mag tape as you would on the film.
Mm-hmm. But
So
if you hold your finger down on the reel while you're recording, you can mess with them.
But I had tools to fix that.
Okay.
That was part of what we worked on. And also, these players are sync locked with servo motors so that they will be absolutely the same number of frames per second.
There's still some pizza over there, guys. Did you get any pizza at all? Too hot to eat? Did you get any pizza?
No.
What kind is it?
This is, yeah, the light,
Oh, wow.
frame special.
That's a whole plate. The whole, or part, big part.
Okay, take it over there to you.
Take it back.
Cooking blender up.
Take it down.
Blu-ray is a disc, it's not a format.
It is a format.
Well, it's a
No,
disc
it's not.
format. It's not an
many
editing
formats,
format.
actually. My question is, you set it up that way?
You can export MPEG-4, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so that's an example of how things can be wonky. So for example, if you have a whole lot of input video, it's at 24 frames per second, and then you have one that's at 30 frames per second, you're going to have some audio messed up somewhere. So before you start your project, you're going to want to normalize and bring everything to the same format.
Well, you'd have the video
Actually-
messed up too, wouldn't you? Because, I mean, the video for that reel would be in sync. But if you try to match it up with the 24, the 30 frames and the 24 frames is when you'd have when it would be messed up.
Right.
Say I have a video, I'm interviewing someone about this roller coaster they designed. And so they're talking and everything, and then and this is 25 frames per second. However, my video, I wore my GoPro and videoed my ride on this roller coaster at 50 frames. Is I want that, put that in my timeline and have it play at 25 frames per second so that roller coaster ride is going by more slowly, so that this person is explaining the mechanics and so
So you
forth.
shoot it at 50 and play it back at 25.
Yeah, so I set up my project at 25, so I have this one video that's at 50 frames per second in my bid.
You just
Into my timeline, I'm expecting a timeline twice the length to ride the roller coaster.
you just label it.
That is
25.
not a very production way of doing it.
So
You would normally convert them all to the exact same format, and using the tools in the editor, expand that stream.
Then I'll be losing every other frame, and my slow motion will not be as fluid, and it'll be,
How do you mean
Jerky.
fluid?
it will be more jerky because because the reason I videoed it at 50 frames per second is because I want every frame of that 50 frames a second, but I want to take 2 seconds to play the 50 frames.
Right.
I don't want to downsample that video to 25 frames per second because then I'm cutting out and deleting every other frame to get this video ready to put it into my project.
And as you normalize your inputs, if that is your ultimate end goal, why not set your input, bring it into Blender, bring it into any tool, and tell it, go ahead and play it at 50%. Save that
At half
output
speed.
and normalize your inputs into Blender.
Oh, so before I bring it to the timeline, I just resave that video at 25 frames per second,
Correct.
and I have a twice as long roller coaster ride ready to go.
Right. So if you try to reinvent the wheel inside the editor, you are going to hate yourself.
in other words, there are wheels that have already been invented. Learn how to use them.
Right. But it's more of a situation of, oh, I want to use that exact same video, but at normal speed later in my project. And so it's a situation where you actually need to have all of your inputs thought about ahead of time. So whether you whiteboard it or whatever, you do want to have all of your inputs thought about if you're doing a complex video. If it's a cat jumping from the couch onto the chair and you've got 2 camera angles, there's not much thinking going on.
You splice them together. Storyboard, that's what it's called.
Storyboarding. Thank you, Don. Storyboarding. So where we're going here is I'm going to set the frames back correctly here. And now our counts match up again.
Now, is one of those the soundtrack and the other the video track? Is that,
One is the audio, one is the video. One is the
Video
moving.
is-
One is the moving picture. I'm sorry.
The moving picture is always shown below the audio on Blender.
You could switch it around.
Oh, it doesn't matter, you can just have them all.
it's just somebody's convention.
Yeah, so now I know.
Yeah.
You could go to a different school and they might have a different convention. Maybe.
Or you can mess it up like I just did. So a lot of times, whenever you want to do something with a clip, for example, so like I want to move this blue thing below the aqua thing, right? So I'm going to press G for grab, and I'm going to drag it down here, and I'm going to press my arrow and get the little counter. So over here in the corner, it shows me my start frame, and over there it shows me my end frame. And I kind of want to make sure those match. And there they do. And so as you start playing with Blender, you're going to realize that it has more key combinations than any Emacs setup in existence.
Does it
So
have a
here
text
are 9 pages of the default key mappings.
You thought Emacs.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
This-
There's only 26 keys, or 101.
104, what keyboard are you using?
Yeah.
The one that- the
He
one
doesn't
without those
acknowledge
keys.
anything but A to Z.
The Chromebook without a caps lock key.
It has a caps lock key.
Hard delete key, hard insert key.
You can pass it around. So there's a lot of keys that do specific things. So for example, I want to select both of these videos at once, or the audio and video at once, because I want to do something to them. And I want to cut them in half right there. So it's like key combinations for everything. There are menu options to do this stuff. So for example, if we have these 2 videos here, we can come in here and the key combinations are here. So I did a soft cut with a K just a few moments ago, but there are combinations and they are self-documented. It's just that,
This program has a soft cut and a hard cut.
correct. Yeah. So what I'm going to do here
Are the
is
key
I'm
shortcuts, are the key shortcuts, is what I see on the screen what really happens? Are they accurate? Can these people keep that stuff accurate?
yeah, it's an open source project. They keep it accurate.
Maybe we need to go back to the 5-button mouse.
Why stop at 5?
No, let's go to the digitizer again. So I just did a soft cut, and a soft cut is basically a copy on write. It's basically saying, hey, keep the entire video twice, but only really show this. But if I wanted to, I could gain back the original. Oh, wait, there. Gee. I could stretch it back and gain back the old video if I really wanted to.
So you're not stretching the video, you're just revealing more video that was before the end point.
Right. So as this is a non-linear video editor, what happens is that we have the capacity to have background or hidden data. And as we work on doing things like transitions, like we want to transition from here to there, we can actually overlap things and do really crazy stuff. It's actually really kind of fun. The videos on YouTube will go through this in extreme detail, but a lot of this stuff is going to be like storyboarding things you should do before you ever even open Blender up. So you should probably have an idea is that whenever the rabbit gets hit by the nut, you want him to turn and do a transition. So a lot of this stuff is like storyboarding.
Transition would be like fade in, fade out kind of stuff.
Storyboarding.
Well, yeah, so storyboarding, if you're doing simple home video, which is what I'm trying to target here, well, it should be pretty simple. I want it to go from that thing to that thing and I'm done. But if you're doing really crazy stuff, then yeah, you would want to have a very, very precise storyboard. Okay, so that's the interface. There's the sequencer. So for example, if we wanted to put in a transition, we would probably select our source that we want to transition to and our destination that we want to transition to. And we could probably come down here and add a effect, and we'll add a wipe there.
What kind of white?
Well, that's configurable.
Diamond shape.
Here, let's get the magnifier all the way here.
I like the one that is like a, circular.
So, we want an iris. Is that what we want? Here.
I'm thinking one that looks like a clock with a center.
You want a clock?
Yeah. that what they call it?
Now this is going to, it's not going to be visible, is it?
Color and preview mode.
No, because I'm transitioning from the exact same video to the exact same video. So that part would not be as
okay.
visible.
You'd have to drag it, the whole thing.
There.
Yes.
And there's all kinds of things like the, where I'm on the wrong thing. Let's get that. Turned out. Really messing with you there, Stan. But we'll do the iris next.
Make it go a lot faster too. Make it go faster.
It's just playing at normal speed here.
No, I mean the iris ought to be about a half a second.
So there's like an iris. So there's all kinds of crazy settings. You can get lost in this and distracted like a bright, shiny object for hours and hours on end. Which is what
Just
Stan would
imagine
do.
putting cats all over the screen and using the cat shape as a wife and things like that.
So yeah, there's lots of crazy stuff you can do.
Try out all the possible transitions, just like in
Yeah,
PowerPoint.
so yeah, it's kind of a problem is that if you do not have a storyboard going in, you'll never finish.
You'll never come out.
Yeah. If you have no concept of what you want your finished product to be, you'll never finish.
But this has been true of filmmaking forever.
I thought that was called art, Andrew.
Sorry?
I thought that was called art.
No, artists finish. Because when they hate it, they're done.
Or when the sponsor comes and carries it away.
Sold it.
Okay.
Sells it.
And so there's actually two things going on. There's a renderer and an animation. And a lot of this stuff is tied back to how the 3D modeling works. But once you press the render button, it will, hey, guess what it'll do? It'll render it. And it will create an output file in your output folder of what you want here. Okay. Somewhere there's a progress bar and I'm not seeing it. Where's it at?
Probably some thin line somewhere in there.
I think the water is moving on the timeline.
I'm sorry?
I think it's moving on the timeline.
Yeah, that green stripe is moving.
Yeah, there you go.
There we go.
It's moving.
Sorry?
Are you running a Bluetooth on it?
No.
What distro?
It's Debian and Sid.
Okay.
Okay, so we're all done. Open with VLC here.
So if we get information in VLC, we'll see what the Kodak is and
Yeah. So that's the very narrow timeline. So it's not the crazy whole video. And then there's that iris wipe.
On the view entry, one of the items is info. Thank you. Tools, yeah. It's tools, you're right, tools.
Media information. Ah. Oh. Oh, it's over on a different screen here.
So the important things in there is the frame rate,
So here
resolution.
we have the codec, except, with basically the website for the person who wrote the codec library, the resolution, the display resolution, because you can actually have two, your frame rate, all kinds of craziness. Let me get the,
How do you have two different resolutions? Can you explain that? The display resolution and then the real resolution?
hold on a second here, let's get the magnifier here. Okay, there we go.
Oh, square pixels versus non-square pixels.
You can do all kinds of craziness, but it's just like any media codec, is that you inform the user agent, the player, before it starts playing, what to display. So you're in the matrix now type stuff.
So the codec is going to inform the player to use either the resolution or the display resolution to show the video to the viewer.
Right.
So if it's chosen the wrong one, the width of the display resolution is narrower. So if it's using the display resolution to play that, and if it does the resolution, then all the characters will be stretched fat. Because the height on them both is 240. The
Correct,
display
but-
resolution
but-
is 427, and the resolution's for looks like 432.
432, yeah.
Okay, so in situations like this, the display resolution may map out to a 16:9 or 6:9 resolution framing. There may be black banding to accomplish display on other systems. So for example, whenever you play an HD movie and it has a black banding top and bottom,
Letterbox.
letterbox, thank you. So those are types of situations that you can compensate for. Letterboxing.
I know what letterboxing is, but it can either A, be embedded in the video, or B, a function of the player so that it shows the video in the correct, without stretching the characters to the wrong shape.
So if you're going to create a video and if you think it's going to be letterboxed, what you'll do is you'll probably throw some black pixel banding on it to control playback so that there's no white flashing on the edges.
White flashing because,
Because you're taking it all the way to the edge.
so you just overlay like a mask on
But
it?
no, you literally throw a black frame on it, top and bottom, and then whenever it is letterboxed, you mitigate the amount of flashing that could happen because of scaling.
Oh, should you just talk about
Scale it.
like 2 pixels of height, 2 pixels on the top, and height of 2 pixels
Yeah.
on the bottom, just so that you don't have the flashing on the
Yeah,
letterbox?
just to mitigate.
Prevents scaling errors. Because if it scales it and it's non-black stuff at the edges, then the scaling will produce artifacts. Whereas if it's black at the edges, scaling will just produce more black.
Mhm.
That makes sense to me now.
Okay. So to recap some of the setup stuff, I went in and to the video editing, and I set the editor area to the properties so that I could change all those settings. I did not talk about the Keep UI thing. We can talk about that in a second. I set the output location. I set the output format because it defaults to PNG. I set the encoding. I set the enable audio. I set the playback, enable the audio scrubbing, the AV sync, and the frame dropping. I typically mute the audio while editing, but you can enable, disable at your leisure. There are some playback and video tweaks you can do. But up here at the top here, The display, if you set that to keep UI, file, save startup file, yes. If you set that display setting to keep UI, then that will give the user interface more priority over the video playback so that you can still use things. So for example, if you are doing a really complex transition and your computer is just bogged down, you can tell it to give preference to the user interface so that you can actually reach down and hit the stop button. And in your file user preferences, and it popped onto the other screen here. There's all kinds of craziness, but on the very right-hand side is system. There's lots of craziness that you can spend the rest of your life reading about. But at the bottom here, there's a prefetch frames setting so that you can have in-memory prefetching all the frames so that your playback is smoother. And I would say 500 is a maximum. 500 frames is a lot of frames. And your memory cache limit. So I have it set to about 3 gig so that it doesn't so that I can do lots of crazy other things. Because I have YouTube videos of cats playing in the background. Back to presentation. So on the importing, I did not show the import at all, did I? And I want to okay, so whenever you want to import videos, there's basically you're going to add to the sequences. So you've got like all kinds of crazy channels and everything. You're going to add to the sequences and you just literally add a movie and go and select something. So it's really not that bad. It is drag and drop friendly. You can literally drag your movie straight onto there. Okay? That way you can be nice and lazy.
That is why a person wants to have all their videos in the same frame rate and the resolution, because the import is directly into the sequence.
Right. So it doesn't have to transfer.
But yeah, Premiere has a separate bin where you import videos into a bin.
Right.
And then so I might have the 4 videos from that table, the video from that table, and the video from here. I can have them all in the bin. And then I'll bring the video from one of the 4 videos from there into Premiere's sequence and tell the sequence to use that format. And then Premiere can take this video and transcode to be like those 4 videos. That way I don't have to look up what the Kodak is and what the frame rate and the resolution is of these 4 videos over here.
So
Because those are automatic.
this is not a talk about Premiere, but Blender can do the same thing faster than Premiere can. The problem is that I'm not going to spend an extra $800 a year on Premiere.
Oh, no, I totally hate this idea of rental software. It's a total turnoff.
So one of the bigger problems is that a lot of these tools that try to bring the project management inside the application, aka manage where all of your files are kept, they kind of will destroy throughout your video. You can organize your own folder structure however you want, so that it's good for your work or your business. So that whenever you get your input from Phil over there, whenever he sends you all those cat pictures, you know that that's where they go. So, and whenever David sends you all those fart sounds, you know where they go.
How complicated is it to import a picture and figure out where it's off on the timeline?
It just so, for example, let's just say add image. I don't really have any images to add.
Did you pick the place first? Is that what you're saying?
Hey, well, did I just close Blender? I just closed Blender.
It will take you 15 minutes to open it.
No. Okay, okay, so yeah, if you wanted to, like, let's just say that this white right here, Lee, let's just say that your image is that white. You could just literally grab it with the G key and drag it to wherever you want.
Okay.
Yeah. The location, you'll probably end up importing everything at frame 1 at the start and kind of decide what you want to do with it. So for example, you could have that like image stretched across your entire video, and whenever there's a gap in 2 videos, it would go to that image. So the sky's the limit, though.
Actually, is there a way that radio wipe is going on?
Title.
Add some text on top that says demonstration of radio wipe.
Does it include titling or is that something else?
So there's there's going to be all kinds of tools. Effects.
Not going to be there.
So yeah, there's going to be all kinds of tools. The text thing is not something I was prepared to talk about, but if you did have some text that you wanted to overlay, it would be another channel that you would add. So for example, that brown thing there is the iris transition.
Yes.
So for example, if we had some text right above it and we wanted to change the opacity and layer it on top or something, yeah, it would just be more channels.
So I guess the YouTube channel that you mentioned earlier would show the process of how to add text.
Right. There's lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of videos.
And titling is the buzzword.
Titling. So this tutorial thing here, all this stuff is in here. Subtitle templates, image separate feature, face blurring, there's all kinds of stuff in this tutorial.
So
This-
when
this
you
is
tag
his-
a face, would it follow the face? We don't know yet. We haven't tried.
So
Okay.
this is his second set of tutorials, and this is not the only set of tutorials I found by a quick search. So there's lots of searches. There's lots of stuff out there. Let's see here. Add movie, just select your movie. Right click actually selects, which is sort of a safety thing, so you don't left click on it. Audio video frames should match. If not, you need to sync them. So for example, if this was your video format here and it did not match your settings up here, you can go to your strip and you can tell it to use your source material and set the final destination rendering size. That was a question you asked earlier.
Can you zoom that in so I can see that?
Yeah.
So that was
The erase strips and set render size are too close to each other.
Oh,
Yes.
erase strips or set the render size.
Yeah.
And there you can say.
You can set your output size.
Set them to be the same as my sequence settings.
Well, no, because I have selected one video. So for example, let's just say your sequence is full of videos. You can actually.
my timeline. I'm exporting the things in my timeline actually.
No. So in my sequence, I selected one video clip,
Yes.
and I am going to tell it to set the render size. So it's basically saying, hey, I want my output to be matched this. Okay.
Oh, it's
You-
not already set by the project settings?
No. I set this yes, but let's just pretend it's not. Okay. Let's just pretend that you imported a video
Without project settings.
and it doesn't match your project. So for example, you're normally doing 1080p. You're normally doing 1080p, but you brought in a 720p video.
Uh-huh.
This is a fast and lazy way to reset the project.
Oh, okay, so then it will re-render it inside Blender, to be 1080p,
Correct.
with my setting, my project setting.
Yeah. Okay, audio video frames, sequencer, import like before. Oh, the home key is your friend.
The one labeled home on your,
Yeah, so for
Keyboard.
example, you come here and everything's wonky and you just want it to just kind of work. So if you press into an area and press your home key, it auto sizes things for you, which is on the keyboard shortcuts thing. So the thing is that every key is used very, very well. Okay. And of course, there's the PDF for that is online. Oh, yeah, there's a speed up option. So on a video strip, you can actually set it to play the preview back at a percentage of the original, so that it'll be much faster. So it's kind of an advanced tip, and I believe it's like his 6th video. He talks about how you can use some really basic hardware to do really awesome video editing. Wait, fans, we keep some. Yeah, it's extremely distracting, so watch the YouTube videos without opening Blender the first time. It'll be hard. Handcuff yourself. But just kind of, watch them first, read about it first, and there's lots of stuff to learn. I haven't done any real production, I haven't done any production video stuff since 2002. But it was actually really easy to fall back into a lot of this stuff. A lot has changed. A lot has changed, but it was pretty easy to fall back. Thanks for coming, and I'm going to have some beer. And whoever complains can do the talk next month.
Oh, I'm not complaining,
I thought
thank
Craig was
you.
doing it.
Hmm?
I thought Craig was doing
Yeah, we can bank on Craig.
it.
But if Tammy wants to do the presentation, that'd be okay, wouldn't it?
Well, I'm not complaining, I'm grateful for the presentation.
Well, Stanford left already, so that was a complaint.
Ah,
Oh, so he's gonna do the presentation?
I doubt for sure he'll look at catch up.
Shall I kill the feed now, or?
Yeah.
Okay.